Episode 15, Parting Resolution. The beginning scene is the Sigurd Valens taking off and going back towards Windermere for the big coronation and, of course, Gramia's funeral.
Yeah, so we get a new opening with this episode also. Absolute
Mhm.
Zero Novatic with Risa Abata illustrations in it. I'm so excited.
That's.
She's my favorite. But that aside,
Did you want to talk about the
now that
opening?
I've had my my moment to fangirl because I love Risa Abata.
Yeah.
This episode focuses primarily on Windermere. So like last episode, we kind of had that little brief glimpse into Windermere after the battle and focus mostly on Ragna. Now this time we're looking primarily at what Windermere has been up to since then.
Yeah, we see the Sigurd Balance take off, and then once they're back into Windermere, we see a partial of the Aerial Knights get together and look over the scar of the planet and discuss what's been going on.
Yeah, so Herman returns to the crater to drop a feather, I think in Gramia's honor. They're going to have Heinz's coronation before they have his funeral because that's a little bit more impending, at least for Roid. It's a more important priority. So Herman and Qasim Sao and Theo all gather together at the crater, and you get this brief glimpse into their lives as Windermerians, basically, and not just as knights. Like Herman is expecting his second grandchild, and Qasim has a 6-year-old that he hasn't even visited since he's been back. Which I'm like, ouch, man. That's harsh. Theo has a fiance. Like this is all stuff. This is just suddenly coming up now, and it's I think a nice attempt to finally give like a humanizing dimension to the knights.
Finally, the
Finally,
twins.
15 episodes later, we finally find out something about the twins. They're not just trailing Bogue in battle formations. Like when Zhao was all like, "Yeah, Theo hasn't visited his fiance," and I'm like, "What?"
He should have said, "But I have." That would be drama.
Oh, that
Yeah.
that definitely set up a conflict.
Right. But yeah, I like Herman because like Qasim was saying that, he's going to forget his family until the war is over. So like not really thinking about them and really not being present. And I think he was trying to distance, this is my headcanon, that he's trying to distance himself to protect them from, losing him to war basically. Which is why my opinion of why he did that. I liked what Herman said though, where he's like, I'm expecting my second grandchild, and when he's born, I'm visiting him and you can't stop me. Like that was just really awesome. He's still one of my favorite knights. I still think he's going to die at some point.
35-year-old grandpa.
Yeah, with the crusty skin.
Oh, gross.
Yeah. Oh, I almost forgot about Bogue.
Bogue.
Yeah. So Bogue was visiting the grave of his family.
His
Uh-huh.
entire family, apparently.
They were
Yeah.
wiped out, I think.
Yeah, and I had like just a little nitpick with the number of siblings because in the Ariel Knights manga he has 5 sisters, but in this episode he only says 3 names, and that was probably just a number inconsistency because one was written before the other.
Hmm.
But Bogue is an orphan, and that kind of makes me sad, even though he's like a human trash can.
But going back to what we were talking about earlier, this is all, the attempt to sympathize with these guys. Why are they so brutal and despicable?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, I think this is exactly what we were talking about last episode. We were saying that the show is definitely trying to humanize a lot of the Windermerian characters and give you at least some context to what they've gone through, what they've lost, and how that's made them who they are. And I think Celia's right. I think Herman is definitely one of the more approachable of the aerial knights. He definitely feels like more human, and he's got more of his, I guess, his personality or his soul left than the other knights, and he's
Mhm.
also one of the more level-headed ones and reasonable and logical ones, it seems. And this isn't the first time we've seen this from Herman. We've seen this before, specifically when Valkyrie and Delta Platoon were being captured by the aerial knights back on Voldor in the Protoculture ruins. And we had that moment where they were having a bit of an ideological battle, and Herman admitted, that what they're doing, what the Windermereans are doing, is like not exactly any better than what the new unified government did against them, and kind of caught the aerial knights in their own propaganda. So I've always considered Herman, I guess, one of the more reasonable of the knights. So this is definitely another sequence where it shows him in that sort of light, where he's like the most level-headed, the most wise, and probably the one who can do the most good, I think, of any of them in the group. The sequence also actually sets up an interesting generational divide, and actually presents something like a topic I thought was rather interesting, that we haven't really seen yet, in that we see that the younger members of the Aerial Knights are sort of with Roid. And we didn't really see that before them, but they think quite a bit of him. Whereas the older knights, maybe not so much, and they were sort of just going with whatever Keith or Gromia did, and just didn't really consider Royd in that much light. But apparently, the younger generation really thinks a lot of Royd, and of course, that's going to come into play later in the episode. But I thought it was an interesting sort of situation, and I think maybe to some extent the older generation might not be realizing sort of the monster they've created, right? Like they were consumed with their vengeance, they were consumed with their independence, they were consumed with being what the new unified government is, even if it's only on a smaller scale, even if it's only for the Brissinger cluster, right?
Mm.
Um, and they were willing to do basically anything to achieve those ends. Both Keith and the older knights and Gromia and all the rest of them, even Royd. And I think now some of the knights, especially Herman, who's probably the most level-headed, and I think Keith is also going to come to a realization where they've sort of created a world where this is all that these younger aerial knights and these other younger Windermerian soldiers have ever known, and they're getting, they're basically breeding a taste for this kind of conflict, this kind of victory, this kind of warfare into a younger generation, and I don't think they realize what it is that they're doing. The full extent of how problematic that's going to be. You're basically creating a new generation of people that like this sort of thing, right? And so that's going to create a bigger problem going down the road, and we'll get to that later in the episode. But yeah, I liked it. I liked this sequence actually quite a bit.
So in the next scene, we see, speaking of the devil, Royd pick up Keith, who is finally up from his Sleeping Beauty chamber.
In his
And there was a little
Bruce
scene about,
Wayne car.
yeah, there was a little scene when they show him as younger kids. Celia, does that play into the manga that you're reading?
Yeah, they both were in the night school at the same time. Herman was actually their instructor, all of them. I'm pretty sure. I haven't seen Costume just yet. But at the point in the manga, they've introduced Bogue as a transfer student. So he was definitely the younger knights instructor. So Royd, Keith, and then Bogue and the twins. That and the flashback that they showed was actually at the time that they were in that war for independence. When Keith was a pilot, he was piloting planes at the age of 12.
Whoa.
Yeah, they were super, super young. Like at the point, I think in chapter 3, the one that I just read, where like they're kind of preparing for the war for independence, and they have the students at the Aerial Night School as an emergency standby assembly, basically. So like if the actual knights aren't able to succeed and need reinforcements, the students will fly in with them. And these are kids, like 10, 11, 12-year-old kids flying.
Yeah.
It's just like, whoa. That's, I think, really intense. And Royd was talking about how Keith's involvement in the war for independence changed his perspective. They use the imagery of white feathers turning black to talk about that change in mindset quite frequently in this episode. I didn't really care for Keith's eye patch. I think it looks goofy.
You wanted the scar.
I wanted a scar. They couldn't give him a scar. They gave him a goofy white eye patch instead.
It's cheaper in production just to give him a little patch.
I know it's I know
Cheaper in
it's
production.
cheaper. I know it's cheaper. And like when he had his
You have to
profile
deal with
turned,
makeup.
Yeah,
and I said,
doesn't have to deal with
"Oh
props
God,
and them making a very elaborate Bretai-esque sort of patch. So they just give him some sort of white gauze and just slap it on him.
it looks so goofy." I don't like it. I don't like the patch.
Well, I don't think it's meant to be like are we being led to believe that he's lost his eye or that this is just a wound that's going to heal over time? Because that's kind of how I felt. Like it didn't feel like a permanent eye patch to me. It felt like just like a yeah, it just felt like a medical sort of bandage that he will remove in time. If we're actually meant to believe that he's lost his eye, that's a little bit more serious than I'm interpreting it so far.
Well, I'm assuming he lost his eye because of later on what they say about Keith and his newfound talent without the eye. But they didn't address the fact that he was going to have the eye patch for the rest of this show. But I assumed it was temporary also.
Because
Well,
it does look
it
like
has the gold
a
trim though.
I guess. Well, it's not necessarily gold, but it feels more like it does feel like a big band-aid to
Yeah,
me. So I was thinking that yeah, it felt temporary to me, but what maybe I'm reading into it wrong. But
That's why I think it looks goofy. Because I get the implication that he lost his eye because of the way that he uses his runes to help him pilot later instead of
yeah,
relying on his sight. So, with that, at least from what I gather from that, I mean, it's not been said officially. What I gather from that is that his sight has been reduced.
yeah.
okay.
And so either his eye is completely gone or it's been damaged in a way that he can't really use it. So it's just better for him to cover it up, basically. But the eye patch looks so dumb.
Maybe he'll get a different mask for every occasion, like a Roid.
There we go. they'll be they'll be accessory buddies.
Yeah, he'll have like a wall of masks.
Take off the gold eye patch and put on a silver one.
His battle eye patch.
His battle eye patch when he's really about to kick some ass.
To go with Royd's battle glass.
Yeah, I don't know what's going on there, but it
Yeah.
certainly hasn't. This wound certainly hasn't done anything to improve his mood, his attitude, or his relationship with his brother. So,
God, no, it hasn't.
yeah, like he continues. Keith continues to act like a complete jerk to his brother, and I don't know. I'm hoping that with this latest fact that Keith wouldn't do what Hines really wanted him to do during this coronation ceremony, I hope this actually does push Hines away from Keith for his own good, just because it's clear that there's just no regard there, and if Hines is going to survive this in any sort of way, he's really got to start looking out for himself because he's just being manipulated on all sides by everybody. And I don't think that there's anybody that has his best interests at heart. I mean, Royd to a certain extent, but then again, as we're going to find out in this episode, there's, yeah, something major going on with him too. So,
You know what? Let's talk about the Ragna stuff and get it out of the way because it's not really as interesting as all the Windermere stuff.
Except for the after credits scene.
We'll save that at the end.
That's the best part.
So yeah, let's let's talk about all the Ragna stuff. Mikumo has this idea about taking back Ragna,
well, not just Ragna, the whole cluster, right?
the whole cluster.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Mikumo states that they've been given orders from Lady M to reclaim the cluster, and she's ends it sort of cryptically about how she's got an idea about that or something. We don't get any more than that. So,
mysterious.
as as Mikumo always is and always must be, apparently.
She's the mysterious Venus.
She is. Yeah. We also learned that Chuck has a waterbed, like literally.
Yeah.
A literal waterbed.
That was excellent. We're like,
That was
kiddo,
actually
get off the
charming,
bed.
yeah. I really like that. That was very charming, actually. I was like, "Wow, that's funny," 'cause they're an aquatic species, so they just yeah, they literally have a bed of water, a pool of water, and that's their water bed.
Oh
God,
my gosh. Did you
that
guys
was
see
awesome.
all of Reina's ugly plushies, by the way?
No,
Like when
no.
they're unpacking
Oh,
in
yeah, when
Ragu
she's
Yanyan?
unpacked, she's, like, claiming her space in the room, and
Oh,
she's like,
yeah,
Yeah,
that's
she's
right.
like, this is
"This is
my
my
spot.
area. This is my spot." I did not notice how ugly they were. I actually did not.
They're terribly ugly. There are these really scary looking plushies.
So the only thing left with the good guy side is, for some reason, the nuns attack Windermere. But let's go back to the coronation, which they can see. The Delta Squad and the rest of Chaos can see. Okay, so now let's get into the coronation.
Yeah, because they're
That was
broadcasting it apparently. They're using the Galaxy network. They've
It's Facebook
apparently
Live.
It is
No,
fake but live.
we've seen this before. This was mentioned actually in Macross Frontier, the Galaxy Network, which was basically just like a bunch of, communication relay systems that use fold waves to actually maintain like real-time contact and communication between all these colony worlds and colony fleets across the galaxy. And apparently the Windermerians have not, in addition to taking the Brasinger cluster, they've also seized control of the galaxy network within the Brasinger cluster. So they're actually showing their coronation to everybody, including everybody who can obviously receive fold wave communications outside of the Brasinger cluster where chaos is right now.
So, did they like just stumble upon the live stream of it? Because that was kind of the impression that I got, that they were like, "Hey, what's this? Wait, it's a live stream, like type of thing." Maybe that
No,
was just my
I don't
impression
think
of it.
so. Yeah, what I interpreted it as is, especially given how the Windermereans love their big pompous propaganda and public, sort of displays and whatnot. I'm pretty sure that this was intentional, especially because Roid is behind it, and given
Mhm.
what's about to happen, what he's about to do, and what's about to happen in this
Yeah, there was a
episode.
declaration from Roid.
I think this is definitely the equivalent of him, like, flying into the, having the aerial knights fly into the atmosphere and like project his hologram onto the clouds, sort of thing. So I think this is definitely the same. This is quintessential Roid.
Oh,
That's so
definitely.
Roid.
Yeah,
It
like
is
this is totally
definitely Roid.
intentional. But I
Yeah.
mean, like Delta Squadron, like did they just kind of casually like happen upon the live stream? Like, what's this type of thing? I
No,
know
No,
Windermere
I
totally
think
planned it.
it's kind of like Roid sent out a tweet and then it just went viral,
Roy tweeted out live stream starting in 10 minutes.
right?
hashtag your cluster's mine, bitch.
Your cluster's fucked.
No, I think it's just it literally is that. I mean, I think the remnants, the chaos and the UN spacey remnants and the survivors from Ragna, they aren't that far from the Brasinger cluster. So like right now, it's clear that they can't really get that far. They just left as far as away as they could get with what they had, and then they're close enough that they can receive transmissions from the Galaxy network and the Brasinger cluster. So I think they're just, I think that's all that's happening there. And that really, what else is there to, their colonies and their worlds and stuff like that have all been taken away from them. So they're pretty much in deep space at this point. So probably the only transmissions they would receive would either be from the new unified government, or they'd be from the Brasinger cluster at this point, right? So I think they're
Yeah.
just, a big transmission came across, probably on the Galaxy network, and so they're like, "Oh, there's something coming through the Galaxy network," and everybody was like, "What's this?" And then, yeah, it's like, "Oh, it's, yo, dudes, it's me, Royd. Come see my coronation video."
It's his Twitch channel.
It's my Twitch channel. Check out this new game I'm playing. It's called like Galactic Domination. I'm totally killing in it.
Oh god.
When he collects them all, he collects
He
them
collects
all.
them all, man. Royd's the ultimate Pokemon player.
Actually, speaking of tech with Windermere, I thought that the contrast visually with their technology and then like the way they dress and their very like feudal style of like of a societal culture was kind of weird but kind of cool. Like the Bruce Wayne car where they're pulling up in this really neat car in front of this hella busted castle. Like it hasn't even been repaired from the last war.
Yeah, it almost feels like the Colosseum in Rome
Yeah.
in many respects, right? I'm pretty sure that's where they got the iconography from, for sure. And yeah, like yeah, I agree with you. Like just their costumes and the outfits of the Windermerans, it's very feudal. Like just because they show you pictures of the crowds, and it's all like,
They have cravats.
yeah, they
They
have
have
like it's all cufflinks and cravats and scarves and stuff like that. It's ridiculous, and it's like, what? Where am I? You know? So yeah,
but
it's
they have
pretty
cars and they have oxygen machines and they have these like
spaceships.
they have these holographic projection like handhelds. Like Royd was looking at one in the car before Keith got in it.
Yeah.
Where I'm like, wow, this is a really striking contrast between Windermere's society with the tech that they're utilizing.
What I want to know is like how the heating was handled in that stadium. That's what I want to know. Big
True.
Coliseum, because it's like it's all open air, and they're like in the middle of this like mountainous region where it's just snow everywhere. So, and it's all
The
stone,
Windermerians run hot. It's part of their doom
I
biology.
guess.
Kind of have this question, but we have to get through the coronation. I'm gonna ask it anyways. Like, how did Heinz transmission? Did they mention why it was so strong? Because before it was like, oh, we're gonna take all the ruins from across the cluster, and then they'll be able to control that cluster. But all of a sudden, it was strong enough to go across the main galaxy, also.
Oh,
Well, I don't
all
think
of the
we.
ruins had those base thingies.
Are those kind of like
Did you see that?
amplifiers?
That
Yeah, they
like,
did. They
That's
appeared.
yeah, they
yeah.
appeared. Yeah, I think that that's not exactly a complete blindside, but it is a partial one. Like we were never told specifically that the Windsinger's song using the protoculture ruins could go beyond the Brissinger cluster, but we weren't told that it couldn't either. And also, I think, like I mentioned several times in the previous episodes of the recap show, that I thought that there was no way that the Windermereans were going to stop at the Brissinger cluster. And originally, I thought it was going to be Keith that was going to be pushing for some big war. And as we're about to find out in this episode, it comes from somewhere else, and that's kind of the
Yeah,
blind
because they were
side in a way.
pointing that way. They were like,
Yeah, they're like they were giving there was yeah there was hints that it would not stop with the Brissinger cluster, and then I think what also makes this work and doesn't make it a complete blind side is the what's the fella from the corporation that who Roid and Keith are always talking to.
Oh,
burger.
Belger.
Is it Belger
Burger.
or Burger?
I have no
I don't know.
idea.
It's just like the different subs, they do it differently, but
Yeah, it's an L or an R.
it's
So
either
yeah.
an L or an R. So we'll call him Belger for now. Belger was talking and always giving sort of like a rating of completion, or like a power level rating or something like that, and it never did reach 100%. I think we got as high as like 74% completion or something like that, and they stated at the time that that was good enough for the Sigurd Valens to do its thing. And so I think that this might be the other, like, whatever, the other 24% or what, 26% or something, whatever it was. I think this might be it. This might have been like the incomplete potential that they were talking about when they were like what they were saying, oh, this can go bigger, this can go higher, we can do more and stuff, and we're continuing our research, and we're learning more every day, kind of thing, right? So I think this is that as well. This ties into that.
Yeah. And I think Celia also has a point about the what did you call it, Celia? Those
I call them
bases.
I call it a base because I'm certain
I
that
like that.
whenever the Sigurd Valens toy comes out, that's going to be a part that you get with it, either together with the Sigurd Valens or sold separately. So I call it a base. But
It's good as word of as any.
Yeah, I like
like
that.
when Heinz, during this coronation ceremony, all of the protoculture ruins turn into those bases,
Yeah.
and it acts as an amplifier without him being on the Sigurd Valens.
And without the thing that he usually sings into,
Oh yeah, without their own ruins.
the Shrine of Time.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was interesting. Before the coronation, we see Royd get into his whole hype speech. So he gets into it, and then he shows that clip of the VF-22 flying over Windermere.
That was pretty cool.
You like that?
Just as a mecha geek, having a moment where you get to see the Sturmvogel, back in action. It's a nice callback, of course, to Macross Plus and Macross 7, and just the great one of the great classic designs of the Macross series for sure. So it was really nice, and of course, it was also used in its proper role as well as like a special forces unit, which was what it got, which was how it was used when it went into mass production after the Project Supernova AVF. So yeah, I was geeking out about that.
Even Captain Arid's reaction, he's a like Masaka, which is like no way, like impossible. And I'm just like, whoa, dude, you clearly weren't expecting that since you were like, no way.
Oh,
Yeah.
I missed that, and that kind of like ruins my theory. And then Heinz comes up from this platform that raises from below the stage, and then he starts singing. But before that, he also mentions the name again, Rudanjal Ram Mayan, which we still don't have an explanation for, right?
Still don't know what that means.
I think it's a protoculture thing.
Yeah, I think so too. It's
I
got
feel
to be
like
some
it's,
sort of like
yeah.
protoculture language or saying or something like that. Yeah.
I feel like Royd taught it to him. Like, I know that his father said it to him,
Hmm.
but I feel like Royd is the one who actually taught it to both of them, just because he's
Hmm.
a protoculture nerd.
Yeah, that's all his plan.
And he has this weird protoculture supremacy type of belief, anyways, so I would not be surprised if he was all like, King Gramia, let me teach you the ways of our ancestors type of thing.
Yeah, so Roy starts to declare that he has the final will of King Gramia.
Yeah, he claims to have the final will, and he says, I heard the final words of the king. He is making shit up.
Yep.
He's totally making it up. And that's when I'm like, oh, Royd, you dirty bastard.
Yeah, and it's totally opposite of what I thought he would be after. It's
That's exactly it. Yeah, which is kind of surprising. I mean,
yeah.
we had talked, and I know I specifically had talked in many previous episodes of the recap show about how I thought Royd was going to be the one that was going to do some sort of betrayal or about face. I thought it was going to be in some other direction. I had no idea. Like I could never have guessed that he was going to do this. I'm seeing now in some ways why he's doing it, because he's got like a handle on the protoculture that I don't think any of the other Windermerians understand. So I think he can realize and power and just make it, the protoculture ruins sort of do for him what he wants. And I think he's sort of like mad with that, what comes along with that sort of power. And it's clear that he's got like grand plans above it. Whether or not that's actually like, I don't even know, like the whole Gramia thing, where like he says, I've got, the king of the old King Gramia Windermere's like last will and testament and blah, blah. I mean, I don't even know how much of that is true.
Yeah, he's totally making it up because the last thing the king actually said was Hein, and then he died. He didn't even finish saying his son's name. But he was saying that with the king's dying breath that he told him, what they should do and that they should expand outward towards the core of the galaxy for the sake of destroying the new unified government, basically. Yeah.
Yeah, they're
Never would
dreaming.
have anticipated that.
No, did see something like that coming. I knew that the Windermerians weren't going to settle with just the Brasinger cluster, especially because just from a plot perspective, we're already halfway through the series and they basically got the thing. So they got to go somewhere from here. But
That's
Yeah.
true.
yeah, but just because of the characterizations, because there was so much internal conflict between the Windermerians, especially Royd and Keith, I thought for sure one of them was going to say, "Okay, yeah, fuck this. We're not done with the Persinger cluster yet. We're going all out, man. I'm not gonna go. I'm not gonna stop until I get like everything I want." And for my money, I thought that was gonna be Keith. He seemed like the type. He seemed hot-headed, not like he'd think things through. Very moved by his like a sense of vengeance and like it wants to inflict harm on others and whatnot. So I thought for sure it was going to be him, and now here we are at the scene, the vital moment. Another move I also predicted. I also like thought that Royd was going to do some sort of betrayal or about face, and sure enough, he did. But it wasn't what I expected, and that's good. That is good. That's
Yeah.
that's good writing right there. Like I thought this show was going to go one way, and it went another. So this surprised me. This really
Yeah.
surprised me.
Yeah,
So
I totally
yeah,
would have anticipated Keith because he's also a scorned prince.
yes,
So it'd make at least in my mind when I was thinking about it, it would have made more sense if for Keith to try to go after the throne and take control because he had his title taken away from him, at least in the manga, but he didn't have the title of prince, even though he's the firstborn son of the king. And so that's kind of where I thought it was going to go, was, kind of taking back his true title type of thing. And especially since he has always had conflict with Royd, like even in the flashback sequence here, he and Royd fought over the fact that Royd chose not to be a pilot anymore after the war for independence. and he felt that being a diplomat or being like a retainer to the royal family would achieve his goals more quickly than being a soldier, basically. But yeah, Royd is surprising all of us from his battle
Yeah.
glasses to this,
To this big lie that he's.
And I feel like it's easier for him now that Grami is dead because Heinz puts a lot of faith in Royd, I think, as because he's his retainer. And because of that, it's really easy for him to manipulate Heinz
He
following
also
his
proved
plan.
himself, and everybody, all the younger Windermereans, changed their mind about Royd because he pretty much proved himself about everything that he was talking about and how it worked out for them.
Yeah. Qasim was so unhappy.
Oh man,
The look on his face,
he just said he wasn't gonna go see his family,
just like, oh.
and it seemed like it was over.
And even Herman had to remind him, like, I know you don't like what he said, but you have to focus on what our next directive is.
And it was just by luck that he was there when Gromia died. Like he was the only one there for him to pull off this lie. So
Yeah.
how much of it was made up on the spot? Yeah, so the wind singer starts singing, and then a fleet from the new UN Spacey appears. We see Keith in his newfound state. Do we lose Chad? Do we lose everybody?
I'm here still.
Oh no, Chad's here. He just fell asleep. He turned off his microphone. All right, so Celia, we see Keith go full on with his wind.
Yeah, that was really cool. So because he has the limited eyesight now, he's flying using his runes to sense where the enemies are, basically, which is really cool. Like it was basically he took out the entire new unified government fleet by himself. I mean, the other knights were there, but he took out most of the ships, at least the ones that had the fold jamming equipment on them, because new unified government was like, oh well, if we jam the fold waves, then the Song of the Wind can't get us. Except, fold jammers can be blown up and then you can be infected with the VAR. So it didn't quite work the way they were intending, but that was a really neat sequence. I thought it was really badass, to be honest.
Yeah, and he was flying, and then his rune would be like where his eye should be, and he was just
Yeah.
like kicking ass. He's like the what do you call it? The Windermerian daredevil. He goes blind in one eye, and all the other senses take over.
Yeah, basically.
But I don't understand why he can fly his machine faster than everybody else. Everybody else was kind of like, oh, we're going towards the fleet, but then his goes like at I don't know, like 100 times faster than the rest of the Windermerian knights.
Yeah, he even fights in Batroid mode. Like, that was
Oh,
really
yeah, I
cool.
saw that. That's pretty cool. He just decimates the fleet, and Delta finally shows up answering a distress call signal. Yeah, everybody's gone except for one guy that Hayate managed to save, and they pull him in. The Legion.
Yes. I don't
Should we,
know. Um,
you do? Should we finish it up or?
we should just finish.
Okay.
We should just
We
keep
lost Chad.
going.
The White Knight took him out.
Ah,
His win was too great for him. Yeah, so this guy asks Hayate what his name is. Obviously, Arad knows him somewhat, but then he asks, you saved me. What's your name? And then we get this weird reaction. What do you think?
that was pretty cool. I mean, okay, so Robert Kino is the name of the survivor,
Yeah.
and he has at least interacted with Ard in the past, and so they were somewhat familiar. And he recognized the last name Immelman,
Hmm.
and his response was really interesting. Where he says to Ard, "Why are you with the son of that man?" Like he says it with like almost a distaste.
So my theory was it was Hayate's dad that dropped the bomb on Windermere. But then, oh no, it was you that said that Arad was surprised about the fact that a bomb was dropped on
Well,
Windermere.
not the bomb, the footage.
Oh, the
He's
footage.
surprised by the footage. He says Masaka, and like I think the footage is fake, to be honest. Like,
I was thinking that when I was watching it, I was like, they could fake this,
especially
right?
because like it wasn't New Unified Government who told us that Windermere used the dimensional weapon. Chaos told us, the audience, that Windermere used it.
Yeah, and we were
So
saying it was propaganda on both sides.
yeah,
Yes.
so if it came from nuns, then I'd be like, okay, yeah, clearly nuns wasn't telling the truth. But since it came from the team that we're really supposed to side with, I'm actually kind of skeptical about the footage that Royd used in the first place. I don't know if it's real or not.
Hmm.
I mean, the missile. Okay, so I don't know a lot about mech, but that's a really teeny tiny missile for
Well,
that
supposedly,
level of destruction.
supposedly it wiped out a lot of New UN Spacey and Windermereans, but the way that they show it, it's like in the middle of nowhere, and then it didn't really destroy a lot of Windermere, and we even see shots of Freya standing like right in front of the blast. You know what I mean? So, which is it? Was it this great massive destruction force, or was it just something that ruined not just the face, but the environment of Windermere and the way things work over there? We don't know what happened to Windermere yet, right?
No, not really. There haven't been a lot of details about the war for independence. They keep hinting at everything, but they're not actually showing us anything. And they've actually been doing that with a lot of things in this show. And at first, I was like, okay, I know you have to wait for the right time to reveal it. But
Hmm.
now it's just kind of starting to add up like all this hinting at who might Lady M be? What's up with Mikumo? Who actually activated the dimensional weapon? Like, now we're starting to get to a point where it's like, okay, we need answers. It's been 15 episodes.
I think they did a good job of answering a lot of the stuff that they brought in the beginning. I mean, there was like the whole Apple thing, the VAR. They got a lot of stuff out of the way. But yeah, there's some questions that have been long running that they need to address soon, or they better have a good answer for why they're holding it back, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, hopefully we find out next week.
I know. Oh, I almost forgot about Roid
Yeah, what
with
happened?
Belger and Roid. Roid,
Oh, that's right. There's that scene.
yeah, so when he's talking to Belger, he admits to him that he has turned down peace negotiations with the UN Spacey, which he initially had been telling the rest of the knights and the Windermerian royalty, saying that, now we're in a better place to negotiate with the UN Spacey. But he decided to turn down peace negotiations because he thinks that Nuns is after the ruins and they don't deserve anything to do with the protoculture. Like, whoa. He did a serious about face, like what Chad was talking about.
Because it seemed like in some parts, Royd and Belger, um, didn't really work together. You know what I mean? But it
Yeah.
seems like now that they have been not in cahoots, but they have a stronger relationship than they hinted at previously.
Yeah, they're totally scheming in this episode.
Yeah,
Like in previous episodes, Belger was like working with Gramia to kind of like pull the rug out from under Royd's feet.
yeah.
But now they're like best evil buddies. It's kind of sudden. But yeah.
What
Did we lose you,
happened?
or did you fall
Yeah,
asleep?
no, I think yeah, lost me somehow. I don't know.
Well, we finished the episode. Well, we just talked about the ending with what do you call it? Robert Kino, the pilot from
Oh,
Don't.
the stinger at the end. Yeah.
Yeah. So what's your take on Robert Kino and what he said, and what's your overall theory about?
Yeah, we're not shown much. Like we don't get all that much, but we're given enough to to show that apparently Hayate's father has some, some notorious reputation. Maybe even more than notorious, maybe even treasonous. We don't even
Well,
know the full details yet, but it's clear that this Robert Kino, who Arad is at least passingly familiar with, um, there's some sort of, he's got some sort of information on Hayate's father, and he's surprised that anyone is having anything to do with Right Immelmann's son, Hayate. So, and he can't believe that Arad is, involved with this kid, so, but it looks like, at least from Hayate's perspective, unless he's a really good actor, it looks like he's completely unaware about what's going on.
yeah,
So
totally.
it looks like he's, at least from the audience perspective, it looks like Hayate is innocent of whatever is about to be revealed in the next episode, or whatever Robert's going to say about his father, Right Immelmann, because he doesn't even know. He has no clue what's going on, and I don't know. Like, I'm not sure what it means yet. I don't know what it could mean yet. I'm not really sure if I have a theory about it. But I mean, I assume that the reason that Hayate's father's history is so like critical, and why we haven't heard about it up till now, is because it has some sort of effect on the greater plot between Windermere and the new unified government. But how that works, I'm not really sure if I have a theory yet.
Yeah. My theory is that he's the guy inside the 22. And we were just talking about it right now, and now that I think more about it, maybe Celia, you said that that was chaos that was involved and not the new UN Spacey that bombed
No,
Windermere.
so we find out, like the audience finds out about the bombing on Windermere, and we learn that the Windermerians activated it from the Chaos organization. Like it's the Delta Squadron that reveals that information to us, which is
Hmm.
what kind of made me think that the footage might have been faked. Due to
Yeah.
Arid's reaction and the fact that it was Chaos that we got the info from and not New Unified Government. Because if we got it from nuns or from NUG, then I'd be like, all right, I could see that. They weren't as honest as they should have been.
So maybe Hayate's dad, Chaos Craft, but not known to them, and then that's how they got the footage. That's what I'm thinking.
I'm not
But
even sure if it's
I don't
that
know.
because that doesn't really make sense from Robert's perspective. I mean, why the hell would he be so upset just because Wright Himmelman followed orders and dropped a reaction bomb on Windermere? Like, unless Robert Kino has some huge sympathies towards the Windermereans, I don't understand why he'd be so upset at Wright Immelman. I think it's something else. I think it might be like if I had a theory, maybe it's because he's somehow involved with the Windermerians. I don't know. Because
or maybe
then that would make sense why someone like Robert Kino, who is clearly, new unified spacey, um, he would be pissed off at him because he would view him as like some sort of traitor or, whatever, right?
maybe he is a traitor. Maybe he did stay in Windermere and fought against the. He fought with Windermere.
Well, I will say this, just as we're talking right now, I'm putting a little bit more together in my head. And we do know from Hayate's description of his father that his dad traveled around a lot
Hmm.
and was posted from one area to the next, to the next, to the next. Now, if his father was, I don't know what his father did, and I don't think it's been revealed yet what kind of position he was in. But let's just assume for a minute that somebody like Wright Immelman was like a new unified spacey officer who was responsible for logistics or something like that, right? Could he
Mm.
conceivably be someone who could have helped the Windermereans spread their water and their apples outside of the Brisinger cluster to other new unified, government worlds? And hence make them all vulnerable to being activated by the VAR through the Windsinger's song.
Well, here's what we know about Wright Immelman. He traveled around. He did stuff that he couldn't write about to Hayate, and his fate is intertwined with Windermere because that's what Captain Johnson and Arid were talking about on the deck.
Yes.
So we have that much information. So
I
I mean, this is
wonder,
just me talking about it right now.
Yes.
I
Yes.
wonder if like Wright Immelman was opposed to, um, like how like
The
nuns,
war with
yeah, the
Windermere
actual
7 years
war,
ago.
like Windermere having to fight for their own independence, and like I mean, if they had to instigate a war in order to get independence, then clearly nuns was not willing to negotiate it, or just give it to them. And if he was arguing in favor of the Windermerians and doing stuff to enable the
Yeah.
Windermerians to get it started,
Yeah.
I could see that. That'd definitely be a reason for a nun's
Yeah.
pilot to be so speak so
Maybe
distastefully of him.
exactly. Yeah. Maybe Wright Immelman is responsible for even like helping the Windermerians in some way, like maybe giving them like variable fighter technology or something like that, like saying, hey, I got one of these, really cool transforming fighters here. What if I was to pilot this thing into Windermere and somehow, accidentally leave it behind? You
Right.
know, and then you guys can build some really sexy, SV 262 Drakens, and they're a lot better than your old fighters,
All
so
right.
yeah, so maybe, yeah, I don't know, maybe
Something.
something like that.
He's Freya's dad. All the fan theories are true.
I did joke about that last time we talked.
Yeah,
about like a Luke and Leia situation for Hayate
I
and
know. We're all
Freya.
like, ew, but now. That's what I'm saying. All the fan theories are true. Every one of Celia's headcanons.
God, yeah, that makes that new opening even more disturbing. So we got
Yeah.
those two images of the right side. We've got Hayate, and on the left side we've got Freya. Or is it reversed? I think it's reversed actually. Sorry, I think Freya's on the right and Hayate's on the left, and their two faces are in profile, and they're coming closer and
Yeah, they're about
closer.
to.
They almost look as if the two faces are about to kiss. You
Uh-huh.
know. So yeah, that makes that opening even more disturbing if this theory is true. Which these crackpot theories, I don't think some of them are true at all. But I mean, it's fun to
Yeah, that's what we're
consider them.
doing. We're
Yeah,
we're we're making up stuff and see
yeah,
how right we become.
yeah, exactly.
Let's skip messages. Let's do messages next
I
week.
agree. These ones are
Uh,
very long.
all
Also,
right.
this is a super long episode as well, so I think it's
Yeah.
more than enough content for now. I think we can deal with messages later.
All right. So let's end it. Celia, where can we find you when you're not doing the Macross Delta recap show?
You can find me on Facebook at facebook.com/Celia Rose Cosplay. And you can find me on Twitter at Planets Twinkle.
Chad.
You can contact me via email at marchingcw@hotmail.com. You can, of course, visit my website, the Macross Mecha Manual, and you can visit the Facebook page for the Macross Mecha Manual, which is facebook.com/Macross Mecha Manual. And of course, you can also find me posting at various anime message boards, including Anime Nation, ANN, and Macross World forums.
And this is EXO. You could contact me on the Macross World Facebook page or the Macross Delta Facebook page, or you could tweet at me at Macross Tweet, the official Macross World Twitter account. And that's it. See you next week. Bye.